Hey guys, Bradley here, and I'm super excited today to be joined by Sarah King, who is the founder of Source Retail Consulting, and we're actually neighbours, which is really cool. If you've been following any of my other emails or videos, I've just relocated my family to Costa Rica, and we're living on this amazing eco community, and just so happens Sarah's like a few metres down the road from me, and she works with some awesome bricks and mortars retailers, but a lot of those people are on Shopify as well. And I know we talk about drop shipping a lot and not holding inventory, but we have got a big customer base of theme users that they are holding inventory and getting their own products made and shipping them in and whatever. A few people in the fashion space as well. So I thought it'd be really useful just to sit down with Sarah and just talk about her experience with helping retailers grow their businesses. And what's really, really interesting about Sarah is that she comes from a very mindful and conscious approach. So it's not just about the business, it's about how you are as a business owner and how to get the best out of you. So say hi to everyone, Sarah. And, yeah, so if you can just tell us a little bit how you got into this, and we'll go from there.
So hello. And thank you again, Bradley, for doing this. And it's obviously been like a joy since you and your awesome family have arrived here in, our awesome little slice of heaven in the jungle. And so basically, I started working retail when I was like a kid in high school, and I worked for like the Gap and the Limited and some like bigger stores, primarily doing like standard sales floor stuff and visuals, and I just really, something about the industry just like really resonated with me. And so I went to college and I got a degree in fashion and business and marketing, and I started working for an independent store while I was there, and I really I loved the small business aspect of it. And I grew up, my father had his own business, so I kind of had a little bit of that in my blood, and I had this like long-term vision of like really wanting to be able to have my own retail store at some point. And once I had spent some time working at this boutique, I was like, you know what, shoot, I could do this. Let's do it right out of the gate. And so I built my business plan in college, and during like an entrepreneurship class, and used that as like kind of like the building blocks tools for my brick and mortar store. And I opened it 2 months after I graduated.
Wow.
I spent like the 2 months in between literally the day of graduation and the day that I opened it, like hand doing everything myself. My brother was my contractor, and so I sanded walls and laid laminate flooring and all of that stuff. And so I built, a brick and mortar store. And about a year and a half after I launched the physical store, I launched the e-commerce site as well. And but I just didn't have the right tools to really give it a go, or the monetary sources to be able to have the right amount of help to do it. And so I basically got to a point where it was best for me to focus my efforts in the brick and mortar personally. And so I focused on that, and it did well. I did it for 9 years, and I had started using merchandise planning working with a consultant, really to focus the buying and everything. And I was able to see the impact that it made in growing my business and just the science behind it. And I was really fascinated by that. And I reached a point where I no longer wanted to, be in the store myself any longer, and I really wanted to help people in a different way. And I could relate to business owners because of having my own, and I know what they go through, the crap that gets thrown at them like every day. Whether they're in a physical store or that they're, or that they're online as well. So I understand that. And so I started building my consulting business, and then I eventually sold my store to be able to focus on this full time, and I've been doing this, full time since 2015 when I sold my store.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you've built up and sold a store as well. So that's an amazing kind of experience in itself. And some of our followers are going through that process at the moment of trying to get a store, launch a store, and get it to $1 million in revenue.
Okay.
And then go through that experience of selling it as well. So is there anything that you could kind of any tips in that kind of respect of like when you're starting a business, things to look out for, or anything you learned from that process?
Yeah, I think
quickly touch on.
I think the biggest thing, one of my biggest struggles that I had was because it was a physical store, and I had initially built like my following, built the brand itself. I personally was so tied to it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of reached a point where like in 2013 I had my daughter, and I was personally feeling like I was ready to make a switch then at that point anyway. And so I started pulling back a bit, and so that was one of the biggest things that I had. And I saw a shift in business a little bit because of that. And then once I got over that hurdle, and we found other ways to really emotionally tie in the customer, and it not necessarily have to be an emotional pull from me, which was very taxing. But that really seemed to work. But as far as from a selling standpoint, I think the biggest thing is that it has to be a really well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Like you have to have proper procedures in place, proper processes in place. You can't build a team around people's skill set. You have to build positions and then implement the right people for those positions. And I think that's the biggest key, that you can essentially be pulled out of the equation and it still works just fine. And that creates the most marketable product.
And that's hard for when you're getting off the ground, and you're trying to do everything as an entrepreneur. Yeah. You've got that curse of like thinking I can do it better myself, or you don't have the cash flow to outsource it to other people. You're kind of it's just growing like snowballing. Taking a step back to actually implement those procedures is a big thing. It's hugely important. And actually, for a prospective buyer of your business, if you don't have that in place, then exactly what you were saying earlier, where you were so tied to the brand, then the value of your business is not going to value up the same, because they know that they can't just take the business over, and you can't hand them like a manual to running the business because you haven't put those procedures in place. So
the pieces sort of kind of like fall apart.
And I think that's a hugely important thing, like especially if you're just getting off the ground with your Shopify store or whatever, that you kind of plan ahead with that, because trying to do it in a panic when you suddenly decide you want to sell, or someone's made you an offer and then they're kind of investigating your business to see whether the sale's going to stack up for them. If you haven't got that stuff in place, it's a nightmare to try and reverse engineer putting it in place, right? Yeah, you want to kind of start as you need to go on.
For you personally as an owner, and for like having this vision of creating this thing, you want to see it like continue to evolve and to grow. That, I mean, for me at least, with selling my store, has probably been the most rewarding, is that I've seen it grow, and I've seen it grow in a way that I hoped that it would, but it just wasn't right for me to take it to where it is now. But it feels really, really awesome to be able to see that I was able to find the right person to be able to do it, and I've helped them in a very different manner, more like how I help with my other clients. I've been able to help them, but it's not mine anymore. But I don't know. And so obviously, like, it feels a lot better to be able to let something go like that and not see it just like fall apart. It feels way better. It totally happens.
Because people buy into it with the dream, and that they often are absolutely clueless.
Right.
You want to make it like a McDonald's franchise where there's a handbook for everything. You literally can't fail at it, because if someone's come from a completely non-related industry and just that's their dream to open a fashion store or a website, whatever it is, and they just don't know what they're doing, it's just it's a nightmare for them. So
it happens a lot.
So what are the three things that you find most retailers struggle with in terms of just growing their business and just managing it from day to day? What are the three biggest challenges that you see time and time again?
So usually it's inventory, cash flow, and vision.
Right.
Those are kind of like the three keys.
The big three.
Yeah, yeah, the big three. And so I guess to start with the first. So
inventory.
So inventory.
What when you're typically working with a client, just give us a quick kind of typical scenario and how you would solve their inventory problems, because I've only ever drop shipped, so I don't know about holding inventory. Funnily enough, going back to your story you were telling at the beginning, I had an ex-girlfriend who was doing retail buying at the London College of Fashion, and I almost dropped out of university to open a retail women's store with her.
Oh wow.
And I lost my nerve at the last minute, which was a blessing, because the relationship didn't work out. So but that was my only experience of like, oh my god, like especially in fashion when you're buying inventory, it's like, how do I know if this stuff's going to sell? And if it doesn't sell, it's out of fashion like next year or out of season. I'm going to be stuck with this stuff.
It's not even in the year. It's within the year and within like a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really my primary focus is within the fashion realm. And so with inventory, the biggest thing is that you need to have a plan. So obviously the amount of inventory that you're carrying, the amount that you're buying in and bringing in fresh every month is all relevant to what kind of business you're projecting to be doing. And so obviously you have to have a plan for that. And typically what I find when I start to work with clients is that overall they don't have, they have like a lot of different product. Like let's say they've got, casual t-shirts, and then they've got dressier tops, and they've got dresses and now jumpsuits and rompers. It's like, it's a big thing. And then they've got all these different accessories and jewelry and, it's like standard. Well, but maybe, let's say like for their tops, they don't have like their merchandise allocation of all of the inventory that they have. It's not really diversified strategically within what kind of sales they're expecting to do, and then what kind of inventory they're carrying within that. And so it's essentially like, what we do is take like major box retail establishments, and we have like they have an in-house planning tool, merchandise planning, and we are able to offer that to the independent retailer, whether it's e-commerce or whether it's like small business, brick and mortar. And it's truly, inventory is the biggest asset. It's the biggest amount of money that you spend in the areas of your business. And so if you don't have it right, the whole equation does not work. And so usually what I find is that a lot of times by the time a client is, unfortunately, maybe even finds out that this even exists, because most people don't even know that it exists, truly. But once they do, and I get connected with them, unfortunately, a lot of times they're just in a really bad place, and so that affects cash flow. So their inventory, maybe they're carrying too much. So they're usually a lot of times carrying too much inventory for what kind of sales are happening. Then, so maybe they went into a season and they overbought, and then their sales didn't, happen, come in to meet those. Chances are they probably bought too heavy because, they're in the fashion industry and maybe they really like dresses, but maybe their customer really
they get a bit emotional about it stuff.
Oh, totally. And I've been there, 100%. I've made some really bad personal buying mistakes myself, which only makes me better at like being within my clients' role as well.
So sorry about that, guys. A bit of a technological malfunction. My memory card ran out on the camera, and he who fails to prepare and all that, right? So Sarah was just telling us about what happens when you overextend with inventory and the problems that causes. So carry on.
No worries. So basically then what happens is, you kind of get to the end of the season and you're somewhat cash crunched, and you're supposed to be building back up into, the new season that's coming. And so you don't have the funds to buy the goods that you need to. And you're also kind of frightened to invest those dollars. You want to keep them in the bank. And that's actually the worst thing to do, because then you just get into like a spiraled cash flow situation, and it just starts to snowball. And so usually what happens is clients come forward and they have, a lack of funds. Things are so tight, and so that's obviously the second big thing.
Yeah.
So inventory and cash flow, and they're obviously completely tied.
Yeah.
And what I see of what happens, and this is really truly why I'm so passionate about what I do, is that I have been in that position, and I know how it affects your overall well-being, the decisions that you make daily in your business, and how it affects your family life, all of your interpersonal relationships, your relationships with your staff, and you just don't have clarity, and you can literally feel like all of the inventory of the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and you don't sleep, and it's no way to live.
No, and when you're making decisions from a place of fear, it's the worst time to make any kind of decisions, right?
Yes.
And it's you need to come from somewhere where you're empowered and doing the right thing. And I think that's where someone like you is so valuable, because I've certainly felt this as an entrepreneur. You can feel quite lonely at times. Like you're doing this stuff on your own. You don't want to confide in your staff because you don't want them to feel like things aren't right, and you don't want them suddenly leaving or panicking. So it can be incredibly isolating. And the other thing is, that you touched on a moment ago, was that your success in the home and your relationships at home are so intricately tied to the success of your business, because if one's not going well, then the other's affected. So when we had some money troubles a few years ago, my relationship with my wife suffered terribly. So you just don't want to put yourself in that position. And I think having someone that's that voice of reason and can hold your hand through the process to get you out of it is hugely valuable, because that feeling of isolation and trying to figure the stuff out on your own is scary.
Yeah.
And, you're able to shortcut that for people and just get them out of the mess and get them back on track.
Part of it too is that you're in the thick of the situation, and even when you're not in if you are in a better situation, you're still in it's really hard to take a step back and look at things objectively, and that brings it to the third thing, vision. And I find a lot of times people they maybe initially had an idea of what they wanted to do with creating this this business, this thing that they just felt that they had to build, and then they kind of either lose sight or they didn't really have a true why factor of what they're really there to do. And that kind of also brings a whole another ball of wax of issues. It's hard to make really valuable decisions that get you there when you don't know where you're headed. And if your team also doesn't really know why they're there or what the full purpose is, then they're either not bought in, or they're not necessarily making the right decisions either, because there's no glue that's really holding things together. It's the same with community. It's really, really important. So I mean, those are really the three big factors that I find. So maybe you can just give us a quick kind of, you don't have to obviously name names, but give us a quick case study of someone that you've really helped, just so that we can see that journey. Someone going from desperation and to getting on track, and then the growth from there. That'd be really helpful, I think. Yeah. So I have really, she's one of my first few clients I started working with, and I love her dearly. And she had a great business, and she had been in business for maybe 7 or 8 years before we even started working together. And she had a couple of different stores. She had e-commerce as well as brick and mortar, and she was really at a point where she just felt like she was spinning her wheels.
Right.
And a sales rep that I had worked with and bought from put us in contact, and she literally broke down on the phone with me and was very vulnerable, and I don't take that lightly at all. I don't take very lightly what I do for people, because I know they're entrusting a lot in me, and same with my team. We all take full ownership of what we're advising. And for her, I mean, we were able to, she was in a tight cash spot, and she had developed quite a bit of debt, and also had not only like debt associated with like for inventory buys, so credit card, which is pretty typical. But she also had a little bit of vendor debt, and she had some debt with the city and back taxes, which is, oh my God.
So for her to commit to working with you, which is, you know, on the surface of it, an extra expense, was a huge leap of faith of hers. Because,
huge leap of faith, yeah.
You know, she's going to put herself in more debt by the sounds of things just to get going with you. And I think, you know, that's a huge thing in itself. And often you see this where people like, you know, like a recession comes and they're like, right, let's stop advertising. It's the worst thing you can do.
Totally the worst thing you can do.
So she was actually quite wise there to think, right, I need help. You know, I can't figure this stuff out on my own. Actually, that the ROI on that extra bit of investment into you was, you know, presumably was huge. So.
Yeah, and I mean, we had like I had a mountain of debt to be able to bring down, and so. That was in December 2014 is when I began working with her. So we're coming up on 4 years, and we've essentially paid down all of her debt and doubled her business.
And doubled it. That's incredible.
Yeah, and that's great. Yeah. Yes, more sales is awesome, and to not have debt is awesome, and pay herself more is awesome, and all of those things are great, and just like feeling that sense of accomplishment. But the real amazing thing about it is her and how much lighter she is. Her overall sense of well-being is so much better. It's improved her relationship with her family at home. I mean, she just feels better in her day-to-day life, and so
without that huge burden of debt. I mean, it's not a nice feeling. I touched on earlier, we had some financial trouble a few years ago, and I racked up, it was about £65,000, there's probably about $100,000 worth of credit card debt, it's not a good feeling.
No.
And like, I mean, you never to tell your spouse that, like,
and likewise, I mean, for myself, I mean, I had about $60,000 US dollars in credit card debt and inventory from inventory, and I wasn't able to pay myself, you know, so I was working my butt off. I mean, like 60 plus hours a week, and more than that, really, because even like the hours you're not logging in physically, like your mental energy you never switch off. And so I know how it feels. It does not feel good. So that's why really we're here.
So that's your fire. That's what drives you. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you know, we had a little mastermind meeting here in our rancho, our kind of community space, because I just put it out there that you know, everyone that relies on their income from the internet here, we should get together and get our heads together. And there was just this common feeling of there was just so much emotion behind it all, because there's overwhelm, and there's you know, there's some people that are transitioning from their, you know, regular paid job into relying on the internet for their income and stuff, and just, you know, if you're in that situation, it can be very, very overwhelming. So I think if you can help people shift themselves out of that, it's a very, very powerful thing. And once you lift that load and you feel lighter, you can think clearly, and then things start to flow, right? And you're so stifled before that. So okay, that's really cool.
Well, and also too, I guess one of the biggest things I see with my e-commerce clients that are on Shopify is that they come to me and things are great, like they're in a good spot, and but they know that there's more, like that there's more to it than what they're doing right now. And usually what I find is that they're like, and initially this sounds great, and that they're selling through their inventory so fast, so their turns are like off the charts, you know. But what's happening is that their inventory gets so depleted that they're missing opportunity, and that's really the biggest thing that I find with my Shopify people.
So it really is a fine balance with managing inventory, isn't it? That you don't want too much, you don't want too little, you just want it just right. And
you want the sweet spot.
Yeah. And is that an art or a science or a combination of both, do you think?
It's a science.
Yeah.
But the art is buying the right
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where like you as a buyer, as an owner, as a buyer, knowing your customer, picking the right product.
Yeah.
Where all of that comes in. But the science part of it is able to tell if that's not quite right, if the performance is not there. So that's kind of like how it ties in.
So typically when a client engages with you, you said to me the other day that you do like a deep dive analysis into all their kind of metrics about what they're buying. So what does that look like?
So usually, so we sit down and really I want to know about them personally, and I want to know like what their goals are, why they even started doing this, because I want to know either if they have a vision or if not, how I can help them to build a vision. So that's kind of the first thing. Then I start to formulate a strategy to be able to do that. But we look at their financials. So I look at that first. I try to see if there's any ways that we can cut expenses, and then I take a look at their inventory and their merchandise allocation. So when I say merchandise allocation, most people are like, "What the hell does that mean?" And that's really like seeing what their breakdown is of like, well, for Shopify, it's your product types. So let's say, you're doing $100,000 in dresses annually. Chances are in the dress market, unless if you're only a casual store, like there's probably a good chance that really that should be split.
Right.
So like maybe you should have casual dresses and dressy dresses, or maybe if you have a range of price points, which is a little bit more rare, I feel, on e-commerce than it is in a brick and mortar. But even if it is, maybe it's a sweet spot price point. Like maybe, you sell, your dresses range from $68 to $120, and maybe your sweet spot price point is break is like $90 or something. So that's usually like the first thing that we really look at. So I see what kind of sales they've been doing, what kind of inventory they've been carrying, and where's the biggest areas where I can find opportunity in breaking those out. And then from there, we start to put together that. We talk about marketing, what kind of things they're doing for marketing, their day-to-day operations, what those look like, what their team looks like, if they have issues with that. So we kind of like lay it all out on the table, what their frustrations are, where they want to be, like what they want to be able to achieve. And then from there, if they have debt, I have a debt, allocation payment plan of how we're going to do all of that. If we need outside help, I help them with getting that as well.
Cool. So, from the point of view, it's kind of like a holistic approach where you're, even from the, like we touched on at the beginning, like the mindset side of stuff, it's not just about what's going on in business, it's what's going on for the owner as well.
Yeah, because really what's the point?
Like,
business is great, but if you're not enjoying it, like, why are we here?
Exactly. I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into, is that, they start the business with good intentions, but then it becomes a noose around their neck, because they might quickly realise it's not the right business for them, or they end up just so stressed out with it that it just doesn't become the vision you had in the first place. So if you can help people realign that vision, or take the bits they do like from it, and then maybe get someone else on the team to take over the parts of the business that they don't enjoy doing, and that kind of stuff. I think that's really powerful. So in terms of your typical clients you work with, are they small, big, medium? Like, how's it tend to be?
Really, I mean, they range. So they're anywhere from, on the lower end, around $225 annually to $1.5 million. Is really kind of like the core of what I work with. So that's a pretty big range. Totally.
And do you find like there's a kind of a cut-off point where someone's at that sort of 2 to 250 range, that they're almost like one store, and then if they're doing $1.5 million, is it down to their location, or the fact that they're doing bricks and mortar and online, or is it they've got multiple branches?
It's both. It's both, and really, I'm much more valuable from the just from the nuts and bolts of the merchandise planning. If it's at minimum 200K.
Yeah.
And really the reason for that is that if it really falls any lower than that, then there's just not enough sales activity happening to really make much of an impact.
Yeah.
We still can if there has been like pretty substantial growth leading up to the point of us like starting to work together, and then we can help them go even more. But as far as like the size, I mean, that's some single locations, some web only, some a blend of both, or a couple locations and web. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. And you mentioned earlier that what excites you most is working with conscious store owners. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, within myself and I think globally, we're seeing a shift in just people kind of waking up and seeing that there's more to life than like just the daily grind or just trying to make money, and that only goes so far. And I think a lot of people are realizing that like that doesn't really bring you fulfillment. Yeah. And so like those really the people that we're at we at Source are really looking to work with is people that understand that obviously like they need to make a living, and we're here to help them do that, but we really want to do it in a mindful way. So in the business world, it's so focused on growth and achieving sales and blah 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 blah, and like lowering your costs and increasing your bottom line. And it's like we oftentimes get lost in all of this, like we got to beat sales from last year, blah 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 blah. But like, and I've actually had to have this conversation with clients that maybe they are like their meeting plan, their beating plan. I mean, they're kicking ass in sales, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like some magic is happening. And then I talk to the owner, and I'm like, this is not working because it's not working for you. Yeah. So like, this is not what we are here to do. I don't care if you don't meet sales plan this month. Yeah. Like, what kind of a business advisor is going to tell you that? But like, if it's really killing you and you're burning it at both ends, like that's just not advisable. And so that's really what we focus on. Yeah.
That's a really powerful and interesting angle on stuff as well, because so many other consultants would be just completely focused on the metrics and the kind of the hard line and stuff, but I think it's so important, especially when you're working with entrepreneurs where they're so intrinsically tied emotionally to their business.
Yes. Or the sales.
Yeah, like exactly. Yeah,
waking up and seeing what the sales are in the morning, or
exactly.
Logging in.
I mean, everyone who's got a Shopify store can relate to this. Like, first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, check your sales. Last thing at night, and it affects your mood. Like,
totally does.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think it's a really powerful thing. So, I'll ask you one last question in a minute. But if someone wants to get in touch with you and maybe just have an initial conversation about working together, if they think you could see if you're going to be a good fit for each other, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Probably by email, which my email address is Sarah with an H at sourceretailconsulting.com. That's SOURCE retailconsulting.com. And just, email me just maybe like a couple sentences of what you're looking for, what questions you have, and I'm more than happy to talk and just get a feel for what you need and determine, if we're a good fit, and if so, then we can kind of go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So as a parting gift for everyone, what tips would you give, like your top one or top three tips or something that you give to anyone who's kind of, in the retail space and struggling, and that you think they can take action on straight away and start to see some progress?
I think first, the ideal thing to do is to, which is hard to do, but like, just take a bunch of stuff off your plate for like a few hours, ideally half a day. If you can give yourself a full day, you should definitely do that because you probably deserve it. And just to come to a good space, if you meditate, awesome, and you should do that. And then just grab a piece of paper, not a computer, because you get too distracted, or don't do it on your phone, but to grab like an actual physical piece of paper and a pen and visualize because you're probably, as a retailer, a visual person. So I think visual is probably the way to go. And to close your eyes and just to think about like your perfect day. And think about everything from the time that you wake up until lunchtime, until into the afternoon, and into the evening right before your head hits the pillow. Like, what does that look like? What kind of things do you see? What do you feel? What do you taste? And describe everything in detail and write that out. And I think that is a really good, powerful place to start from, to really know how you want your business to help fulfill that.
It's so powerful, and we're living testament to that, because as a family we wouldn't be in Costa Rica right now. My wife, through her business, did exactly the same thing. She just sat down and envisaged exactly what she wanted out of life. And yeah, and she spent like 4 hours doing it, and she came out of the office and she's like, Costa Rica, and I was just like, yeah, why not? And it's the best thing we've ever done. But without that, and taking that time out to do that, because she's busy running around with 4 kids, she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Trying to find the time to do that is really hard, and it's changed everything. So just these small things can just make massive shifts in your life. So I think that's incredible advice, and it's not something you hear from everyone who's talking about retail and e-commerce.
Yeah.
No one talks about this stuff, so I'm just so happy that we've got together and, and talk about this. Is there anything else that you'd add to that?
That would be good. I would also really take a look at what you're selling, and really dive as deep as you're able to do within Shopify. And take a look at, what kind of merchandise you're selling. You don't want to be, overly diversified within your product types to where it's like to where you like are going to put your product in and you're like, okay, now which product type is this? It should be something that comes very easy to you. And to see, like, is your merchandise allocation, proper? So, and that can look different ways depending on how much business you're doing. But I think you can kind of get a good feel for it. Obviously, like, we can dive deeper into that if that's something that you're interested in. And I think it's really good also to get to know your financials. I mean, typically as retailers and as creative types and visual people, the last thing that we want to do is look at a freaking P&L or a balance sheet, let alone understand what it means. But it is actually very, very important. And it is important to have people that you work with, like, a CPA or that really understands that for you. But it's important for you to understand what that is as well. That's another thing that we do, with clients is to allow them to understand the value of it and to make it work for them. And really the last thing I'd say is really to know your why. Like, why are you here? Why did you set out to create this website? And we're selling products, but we need to be selling more than just a product. People need connection, and that's really what they're buying. There's an emotional connection somehow that is drawing them to click to check out. And so it's really important for you to understand that, so that you can be a better retailer, but also for you to feel more value in what you're personally doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something I talk about a lot, which is value proposition. It's like, and whenever I get asked to review a store, it's normally on the checklist of things that come up. People just throw a load of product up there and think they're just going to drive traffic and it's going to create sales. And really, people buy from people. It is that emotional connection. Why are companies like Tom's so successful? Because people feel like
they're doing good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so if you can give people a compelling reason to buy from you, then your business is only going to improve. And I think so many people skip that part because they just focus on the end goal of money. Right. When really you really need to think about why you're doing it, and then the money will come because you're doing it for the right reasons, and your energy behind it is the right kind of energy. So
that's what will truly propel you for, growth that allows you to be able to do the things that you want to do. And that in the long run is way more fulfilling. Just reaching an end sales goal, with that being the initial driving force. You reach the sales goal, and then
hollow victory.
It is totally. It is totally a hollow victory.
Awesome. Well, that has been so cool. I'm so happy that we got to do this.
Yeah.
And please leave your comments in the video below the video even. And if you want to get in touch with Sarah, it's sarah@sourceretailconsulting.com, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So love to hear your feedback, and we'll catch you in the next video. Take care.